welcome back to the War Room. I'm here with my usual host, Bert.
Hey,
and today we got a special guest, the owner of the Texans County Instagram account. Really, really good insider that we've been following for a while. Dylan, how do you say the last name? Delgatto?
Delgatto.
Delgatto?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Dylan Delgatto. I've been following his account for at least the last 6 months, getting all the inside information from him. I'm sure you've been following as well.
Absolutely.
And, luckily our fellow co-host Thomas was friends with him. We got linked up. And we were like, dude, we gotta get this guy on the show because he's got so much valuable information. So
way more than us.
Yeah. the amount of amazing insider content and roster updates he was covering, especially throughout preseason, I was so impressed. So it's been awesome to get you in the studio, man. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how you got started with making this kind of insider account and, where you get your sources from, all that good stuff. Give us an inside picture.
So I'm 21, lived in Houston all my life. Back in probably beginning in 2020, or towards the end, I don't even remember. It's been a while. I've been friends with the guy who ran a page called Texans Central. It was pretty big. It was like 20K, and just have been friends with him for a while, messaging back and forth. We were in some group chats together, and he was telling me about it, and I was like, dude, this seems fun, like a cool way to kind of add some stuff to a resume. I've always been interested in journalism and sports, reporting. I think it's a cool lifestyle that Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter and all those guys get to live, getting paid a lot of money just to go watch football practices and get all the inside information before everyone else gets it. And I was like, yeah, and so I talked to him and he kind of helped me get started on a small page that was originally called Texans County. Fast forward 3 months later. So he had a page, had 20K. He was a jerk, and he loved pissing Colts fans off. And he got himself deep into an argument with Colts fans, and 4 Colt pages attacked him and made his account get banned by Instagram. They were all just reporting it, and Instagram was like, all right, whatever. So he kind of lost motivation. So he had a smaller page that already had 1,000, 2,000 followers, and he was like, yeah, I'm going off to college. I don't really want to do this anymore. He's like, you want it? And I was like, sure. I already had Texans County, which had 500. So I just changed the name, took over. And that happened probably right after the Nick Casario's first draft here. So that was what, 2021, beginning of 2021.
Yeah.
So I've had a page for about 2 years. I've had about full 2 off seasons, which is exhausting to do, and just as you said, the preseason cuts and stuff, trying to decide who's worth a post, who's a big enough name.
Yeah, is that do you consider that preseason the wildest time for you to keep up with all the roster moves and everything?
So I would say the first few days that preseason, that free agency is open, is crazy because and that first year that Nick Casario is here. I mean, you guys are Texans fans, so you guys know a little bit about it, or at least I think one of you is.
There's a long story there. Okay,
look, he's got a Texan shirt underneath this.
I do.
The Cowboys are playing right now. He went to Mississippi State.
I gotta respect. I love my guy Dak. So
I don't like Dak.
I get it.
I get you.
I get it.
Nick Casario's first year, that free agency. I don't know if you remember, we had no players under contract.
Yeah.
I mean, every 5 minutes we were signing up a linebacker or whatever it was.
Well, yeah, because we had no first rounders that year, right? So our first pick was in the 3rd round, if I remember correctly, right?
So here I am, I'm in college, and I think I came home for that week, and I just keep looking at my phone. I'm like, another signing. I think I made 60 posts in one day because Casario's on such a tear. So I think those 3 days, more like a week actually, because so much happens during that free agency week, and then the draft is a little chaotic this year, especially because no one knew
what was going on.
Most people didn't know what we were gonna do.
Yeah,
you can't really prepare graphics when you don't even know what your team is really trying to do. So there's that, and then the cut deadline this year was drastic because in the past it was you cut 20 and then you cut another 20 and then you cut another 20. This year you're cutting 40 like that, right?
Yeah, it was insane.
That was drastic. That was hard to follow, and then like the guys you think are going to get cut, and then there's some random ones you're like,
where'd this
what's going on?
Like you're like in your brain, you're like, that doesn't make sense.
We had a couple guys in our secondary that got cut that I was like very surprised with that you reported on. Made no sense.
It's an interesting one. So I think, you got like 3 really busy seasons, in season's not too bad. You just gotta, you got like game day stuff. And like I work at a church, so like that is challenging. Like I missed the first 5 minutes of the game. Like I'm filming a baptism and I'm watching the game. Like, like there's that's the challenging part. It's like everyone's like, why don't you go to games? I'm like, I can't,
I can't,
So, and that was the other thing Thomas told us about. You're a worship leader, correct?
Yes, sir.
What church do you worship? Are you a worship leader at? And how long have you been involved in that? Give us a brief
I'm at
conversation about
Northside
that.
Christian Church. We're down in Spring. I grew up there, but I've been on staff as the worship pastor for about 1.5 years. So
awesome,
very cool.
Yeah, Thomas is telling us all about you. He's like, dude, this dude is an amazing like reporter on the inside of Texans, and he loves Jesus. I was like, get him on the show yesterday.
Hey, I'm always down for fellow Jesus lovers. Hey,
there we go. Yeah. So okay, well, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and dive in the Texans week 1 game today. Let's just go over some of the key stats today. So starting with like the team stats. What was really kind of surprising to me when we're looking between the Ravens' performance and the Texans' performance is honestly how similar they were on the offensive side of the ball, right? Texans had 268 total yards, which was only 3 more than Baltimore, right? We actually had the same amount of first downs as Baltimore. We roughly had 50 more passing yards than Baltimore and 20, about 30 less rushing yards. And then we only had 72 rushing yards. 20 of those were from Stroud. Overall, it really came down as a team in the offensive side of the ball was the inability to convert in the red zone. CJ Stroud, 28 of 44 attempts, not too bad. 242 yards passing, 4 carries for 20 rushing yards, 1 lost fumble, sacked 5 times. I definitely think you probably have some stuff to talk about with the O-line. I don't think anyone was impressed on the rushing side of things. Once again, you already talked about this on your platform. Only 19 carries total, with Dameon Pierce only getting 11 carries for 38 yards. CJ Stroud was our second leading rusher on 4 carries for, well, technically carries, probably scrambles for 20 yards. On the receiving side of things is where it gets a little bit brighter, with Nico Collins getting 6 receptions for 80 yards on 11 targets. We'll dive into that a little bit later in regards to breaking down the receiving end of things. Robert Woods, 6 receptions for 7 yards and 10 targets. Tank Dell rounding out the top 3 of our receivers with 3 receptions for 34 yards on 4 targets. On the defensive side of the ball, Will Anderson and Jonathan Grenard both had sacks. That was good to see. Will Anderson probably should have had a couple more.
We'll dive into that later too.
Exactly. And on the injury side of things, unfortunately, Jalen Petrie went down with a bruised lung, apparently, which a really odd injury with the way he got called on a blitz, hit Lamar, and I'm not sure if the injury happened on that play or if it was the play before. But it looked like Lamar's knee maybe got up in there. I don't know.
Lamar's knee just drilled his lung. And he's staying overnight in the hospital. They say he's good. I think it's more so just to like observe and see like where your lung's at. I would expect him to be out next week.
Well, I heard there was reports he was coughing up blood on the sideline.
Yeah,
so
he was. I've heard nothing but like good from here. I would expect him to be out Sunday, but Jimmy Ward will be back. And then I think the other positive is like Eric Murray, who's been respectfully the most dog garbage secondary player in the league that we've ever had. Like had a solid game today. MJ Stewart looked good. Like
Stewart had the late game interception as well. So that was nice.
The fumble recovery or whatever. We can deal. Petrie's a game changer, but the good thing is that he's okay and it's not a long-term injury. So
So in regards to the overall performance, week 1 for the Texans, obviously we know we have so many young guys on this team, and the veterans we do have, like Jimmy Ward was out. Robert was a veteran that did look pretty decent today. Where do you want to start? What was your initial impression from this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the elephant in the room is that people knew we weren't going to win. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But I think the overall goal of this season, obviously you want to have like a 6 to 7 win record, right? Like you don't
show
want
improvement
because you show improvement. yeah, you want to show improvement. That's the goal this year, is to show that, hey, we've made strides. We can be competitive. We just need to bring some talent in. So, like, obviously, that was a very winnable game, especially going into the second half. Super winnable. I mean, you're down 1. I like what I saw. I think what you saw from CJ was really good for having the worst O-line performance ever against one of the top defenses in the league. Granted, yeah, they were injury prone, whatever. Who cares? Every team is injury prone right now, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, J.K. Dobbins goes down with a torn Achilles, I think, first quarter, second quarter?
Yeah.
I can't remember when that happened.
I mean, that guy can't catch a break. But
and then someone else had a knee injury as well on Baltimore's side. So, yeah, that was a tough game. Yeah.
So you just look at it as like, yeah, there was a lot of garbage that happened in that game. But from an overall standpoint of where the Texans are going and what that looked like, I mean, we should have gotten blown out, right? If you take our run defense last year, just take our defense last year, they were scoring probably 40 or 50 on us.
Yeah.
And granted, today, they scored 25, right? One touchdown came after a 4th and 1 that we couldn't convert. Yep. And then another touchdown came after another 4th and 1 that we couldn't convert. We gave them 2 touchdowns because we gave them good field possession. Like, you took that away, like, the Texans showed a lot of really good signs. And I think that's, like, the takeaway is just that there's a lot of good I mean, there's a lot of crap too, but there's a lot of
it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Like, granted, that win would have been a statement win.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I don't think. I mean, I was like, I'm going to say we're going to be able to win every game, like whatever, right? But I wasn't going to like, we're going to beat the Ravens. I mean, you got Lamar, you got OBJ, you got Zay Flowers. I mean, talent everywhere. You
Rashad Bateman as well. I mean,
Bateman, underrated. You got a decent running back core. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins.
Roquan Smith on the defensive side as
just
well.
From an experience. From an experience standpoint, you're looking at a Texans team that is,
you're looking at a team that, like, you got some veterans and you got mostly young players that are like fighting for a job.
Exactly.
And like Roquan, like, had a game. Like, there was that one play, and like this is because like we're outmatched, right? Like, you got the people blitzing, and then Roquan looks like he's in coverage, and he just turns the corner and he's there to sack CJ, right? Yeah. Like, it's those little things that the inexperience of our O-line, they don't know. Yeah, they don't know to turn from the defensive end to go get Roquan.
And it's already an O-line that's already taken some losses to start the season before it got going, with Kenyon Green going out with that shoulder injury.
Titus Howard.
Yeah, Titus Howard's out as well. So that's 2 starters from last year out. Before, that was one question I want to ask you, was on the Kenyon Green situation, because last year we saw him really be a promising run blocker, and the pass blocking was what needed work. And from watching this preseason, I only saw a couple of plays where he was in, and then all of a sudden it looked like he tweaked his shoulder. And then all of a sudden, I think within a couple of days after that, he was on IR and ruled out for the season or something like that. Do you have the scoop on what's going on with Kenyon Green? Because I remember that preseason game, he wasn't even listed as starting.
Yeah, so, I mean, last year he got hurt at the end of the season. I think he missed like the last 4 or 5 weeks, whatever. Which was fine because, like, at the end of the day, we were out. We just needed to leave.
Yeah, we didn't even play Dameon Pierce the last couple games either.
No, because Dameon Pierce was cleared. I mean, where he could have played, but why risk him?
Exactly.
Had surgery this offseason. It was solid. I think there was some personal things going on that have affected, like, his mental health and his mentality. I've seen that. And then, he tweaked his shoulder a little bit. I think he's really fragile, and I don't know if he was fully recovered from his surgery. And for him, it was like, I got a new coach. I want to, like, try to go prove myself. I need to get out there. I need to protect CJ. And then I think he's just going too hard too soon. And again, like, he probably wasn't the best pick in that draft. Like, you passed up on Tyler Linderbaum. You passed up on Zion Johnson. You passed up on a decent amount of O-linemen, but so for him, I think it's just they probably could have waited to put him on IR and let him come back like week 10 or 12. But I think you putting him on season-ending IR says, hey, we're going to give you a year to
figure it out.
All the personal stuff out of the way. Do you get fully healthy? You get strong. You get big. We're gonna work with you, and then next year you're hitting the ground running. You're our left guard.
Well, and you know, the crazy thing is that's a pick that can still work because of what we know of Kenyon Green's versatility. This is a dude that literally played all 5 offensive line positions when he was at Texas A&M. When we played Alabama and beat them, he was actually told the day of, hey, we need to switch you over to, I think it was tackle or center. I forget which it was, what he was playing. Yeah, we need to switch you over to this position today. And this is the night before the game. He's like, hey, by the way, Will Anderson's going to be on you. And Will Anderson got 0 sacks against him and was matched up him all the time on blitzes. And it was pretty wild. So you have a guy that's like that versatile, is able to play all 5 positions and has the aggressiveness. If he can, I think the main hole in his game that I've seen from his first year in the NFL was the pass blocking, right? Which is hard. It's hard to evaluate when the overall unit last year was just so atrocious.
Well, there's other parts of that too. I mean, first of all, to talk about development and a rookie O lineman, there's very few O linemen that come into the league and are good.
I think the last one I saw that was actually like a good starter his first year might have been Jake Matthews.
I was about to say
that was like the last one.
Laramie Tunsil. He was all right, and we overpaid for him. Then he turned into the best left tackle.
It took him like 3 years to even get to that kind of status. Either,
Twitter. You go on Twitter after that injury, and after he does something wrong, Twitter's all over him.
Yes.
So like Titus Howard spoke up. Some of the Texans reporters were like, "Yo, calm down on the guy." JJ Watt even said something like, "Yo, give this guy time." Like, granted, he was a top 15 pick, so he should be doing something better. But like, O-line is one of the hardest positions in football to play.
Well, and I unfortunately, I feel like some of that criticism is coming from we've got burned so many times in the past in the Rick Smith era, right? You think about how long it took Clowney to develop and all the injuries he dealt with. I think we're being unfair because of past mistakes. We think of all the different kinds of prospects we've drafted. Even Will Fuller, it took him several years to even get to where he can catch football. So
it's being critical. People are – here's the thing, and it's about Nick Caserio. That's why people are being so critical. People are mad that he drafted Davis Mills. He had a 3rd-round pick. What do you get?
Yeah. What are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with a 3rd-round pick?
You're going to take a quarterback.
Exactly.
You're going to take the quarterback who had potential to be a first-rounder the next year. That made sense. And then, you took Derek Stingley over Sauce Gardner. I would too.
Stingley was a good job. I mean,
I like the Stingley pick.
Let's be real. Sauce is good. Sauce is a great corner. He's the most overhyped corner in the league. Stingley was just as good last year when Stingley played football. And Stingley locked on OBJ today. Got 2 PIs that should not have been PIs.
100%.
They couldn't throw to OJ. He was locked down.
Yep.
But he gets no attention to that.
No.
But Sauce gets the attention. It's people are critical to Nick Caserio, so they're critical to Kenyon Green because some people want Nick Caserio fired because in his tenure here, he hasn't done anything. But he took us out of negative $60 million cap. When he came here, we were down $60 million cap. He traded Deshaun Watson for a bag.
Yep.
Probably
absolute bag.
Not that much for a guy who's raped 24 women.
Yeah.
You should have probably gotten
allegedly.
Got
to do the Pat McAfee show here. Allegedly. Sue me. Don't actually. Shout out Brett Favre.
He has made, and he may have not had the best drafts on the round. Like maybe his later round picks have been a little fail. Like you could have had Amon-Ra St. Brown, but you have Nico Collins, right? Like there's that aspect. But people are overly critical of Kenyon Green because they want to find a reason to dislike Nick Caserio because he traded for Will Anderson. We didn't need to give up more picks. Yeah, you did. D'Amico wanted his guy. He wanted both of his guys. Let him get his guys.
Exactly.
If you're going to go out as a GM and you're going to hire a new coach like D'Amico, you have to let him bring his guys in.
Yeah.
D'Amico Ryans wants his Nick Bosa.
Exactly.
But D'Amico Ryans also don't want Davis Mills as a starting QB.
Well, when you look at Will Anderson, it's one thing if you're drafting a Nick Bosa who was a one-dimensional. He is a down defensive end, right? Yep. Will Anderson, the reason it was, in my opinion, it was so much worth it to spend those extra picks to get up there and get him at number. Well, he was 2 overall, then we got Stroud at 3. Yep. You're talking about a guy who started out as middle linebacker, then was able to float between an outside backer and a 3-4 and a hand down lineman. Sometimes even playing a 3-tech at Alabama. There is film with him playing 3-tech. I watched him terrorize my Aggies for year after year after year. You got it's as a defensive forward defensive player, and Burke can attest to this too. it is so hard to be a guy that can have that inside out pursuit mindset at the Mike linebacker position, and then immediately in the same game flip the switch and go outside in pursuit angle from a DN or an outside backer standpoint. The last guy we've seen that can flip back and forth, even at the collegiate level,
probably
is Terrell Suggs. That's the only guy in the NFL in the last 10 years that we've seen that can flip back and forth between be playing hand down defensive end or outside linebacker or next to Ray Lewis at middle linebacker. So you're getting a three-dimensional player in three different positions.
Another thing you have to consider, and I'm speaking to Nick Casario at this point, is you have to look at where Will Anderson was supposed to go the year before he was drafted. Mm-hmm. You're looking at a guy that was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick, and the very next year you come back and you get him at 3. There's value in those picks that you can use for the rest of your team.
And I'll clarify this. And I think I've mentioned this on the page before, because people, you have the people who overreact, like, why did you trade up, whatever.
Boomers.
But
he wasn't. If we didn't take him at 3, he was going to be gone.
He wasn't going to fall. But you didn't trade up for Will Anderson. You traded up for C.J. Stroud.
Exactly.
You weren't going to take C.J. Stroud at 2. At 3, you weren't going to take Will Anderson at 2 because you risk C.J. not falling. You risk the Titans paying way more to try to jump you.
Exactly.
But you weren't trading up for Will Anderson. Will Anderson was your second overall pick. C.J. Stroud is what you traded up for.
Yep.
Exactly.
You traded up a quarterback value to get a quarterback. You just chose the quarterback with the pick you already had.
Exactly.
That's literally what they did. And I wanted Bryce. I was a Bryce Young guy all day. The Texans wanted Bryce. Obviously, that didn't happen. But you weren't getting Will Anderson if you got Bryce Young.
Yeah.
If you had the first overall pick, we weren't getting Will Anderson, I don't think, because the reason that worked was because the Chicago trade. So now, there wasn't a team, and I don't think Chicago would have traded the second overall pick. They just didn't want to take. They didn't want to pass up the value. They could have jumped the Texans.
Yep.
That was the thing. If the Texans had the first overall pick, Will Anderson was a lock to go to.
Exactly.
So, granted, we won in that instance because we got both. So, but you have to look at that trade as Will Anderson, probably the best defensive prospect we've seen in a while. You could argue Chase Young, but what's he done?
Maybe an Aiden Hutchinson in that area as well, or maybe a Bosa in there as well.
Yeah. Like I said, I feel like with Will Anderson, it's worth the extra you had to pay to get him because of the fact that he gives you so much defensive freedom. I mean, you think about D'Amico and how he loves to run multiple fronts on occasion, right? Do different stunts and whatnot. In order to run a multiple front defense, even though he loves to stick with a 4-3 or 4-2-5, mainly a 4-man front, in order to run a multiple front defense, you've got to have guys who play multiple positions, especially down linemen. I mean, the Ravens' height of their defense was when they had Terrell Suggs alongside Ray Lewis, because Ray Lewis was dominant enough to where he could be your lone Mike in a 4-3 over, but Terrell Suggs could be that guy that could run next to him in a 4-2-5 and be his second fiddle. But then as well, when you wanted to roll into a 3-4, you could have him go be outside back. When you wanted to go into 4-3 over, you could have him go down and be your end on the strong side. So you just had all kinds of freedom to give so many different looks, adapt, make halftime adjustments. Will Anderson's that guy that's going to do the same thing. So that's why I was totally fine with it.
In today's NFL, I think it's so hard to have success without having a stud or just some sort of a playmaker on the defensive line. You look at the past Super Bowl teams who have won. I mean, Kansas City, for example, your past Super Bowl champs, Chris Jones.
Yep.
Philadelphia Eagles, who were right there with them, Fletcher Cox.
Yep.
Both Mississippi State guys.
But
we'll leave that out of it.
I'm still on the conspiracy of the sod father, that the sod father's turf in that game just eliminated the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. They couldn't get great. But that's a conversation for a different day.
Going back to our point, though, is when you're in that draft, you need playmakers and you need them on the defensive line. Why would you not trade up and take those risks and expenses to go get?
And there's value too in showing the league that, hey, we're here to play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you trade up your pick, I mean, we should have given up Cleveland's pick. Let's be real, whatever. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I think we're going to have a good enough year where our picks will be pretty similar. You trade up a pick for the first round, that shows the league, hey, we're here. We believe in ourselves. And that speaks volume to players.
Yeah, it also speaks volume to D'Amico. I think D'Amico's not willing to just wait around for something to change, right? I feel like D'Amico was looking to make an immediate impact, and he was like, hey, if I'm going to make an impact on the defensive end, because I know I've got a rookie quarterback. I need a playmaker. I need someone that gives me defensive freedom, multiple front looks if I need to. And look, you're talking with Will Anderson already. We're seeing a dude who was primarily a linebacker role in most of the time, and playing with the hand down was kind of his side hustle at Alabama. And now we're seeing him as a hand down 4-3 defensive end.
Yeah.
So it's he's basically so far obviously you have a little sample size, but in just regards to his ability that we've already seen in the preseason and training camp and everything, he's giving us the flexibility that Clowney took too long to do, and really Clowney was never able to play in a 2-point stance like he was advertised to.
Was a glorified run blocker,
pretty much. And still, Clowney's edge rushing is not as good as someone like a Myles Garrett or something like that. He's always going to be your second best pass rushing threat. He's just more limited than when he was advertised to be. We thought we were going to turn him into an outside linebacker in a 3-4. Was not going to work.
We were in on Clowney this offseason, and we just didn't need him.
Yeah. So let's get back to the week 1 game, right? Yeah. So I think on the offensive side of the ball, I think we can be somewhat encouraged by, CJ Stroud's passing. So, thus far he did miss some key throws, but you just look at the total passing yards. It's something to be optimistic about. But when we look at Dameon Pierce having only 11 carries for 38 yards, and your next leading rusher and the person with the next most carries is CJ Stroud with 4 carries for 20 yards, which was 4 scrambles running for his life for 20 yards. You're looking at a team that has a running back that was did he get to 1,000 yards last year? I forget. I think Pierce got close.
He was a little short of 1,000 because he didn't play.
Yeah. Basically, if he would have played the last 3 or 4 games, he would have hit 1K. And to him have only 38 yards. I know the Ravens struggled running the ball as well, but my biggest problem is the only 11 carries. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think part of what Bobby Slowick, our offensive coordinator, kind of went into Baltimore thinking is, okay, we need to throw them off their game. And I think Baltimore probably expected you to run the ball more. And I think it's clear that's what his mindset was, because the amount of play actions we saw in the first half. I feel like every pass was a play action.
And towards the end of it, no one was getting fooled.
Yeah, and that's just, and I get it. He's also used to the Shanahan talent. You got Debo, you got Ayuk, you got all these guys.
Well, and the Shanahan offense where it's run first a lot, and you have so much misdirection out of the run as well, backside zone, all that good stuff.
I think that kind of stuff is what has said, okay, let's shift away for this first game, and let's try to give CJ that opportunity to pass on a hurt secondary. No Marlon Humphrey. One of their safeties got hurt. No Marcus Peters or whoever. I don't know how to names anymore. Right? I think it was an opportunity of okay, their secondary's a little bit hurt. They're probably expecting us to run. What if we try to attack them better in the pass game? But your O-line wasn't there. And that's when you had to get the run game going so that your pass game could open up.
Yeah. So that makes sense.
So just a thought here, right? And it kind of goes back to what we were talking a little bit earlier, right? The whole idea with this season is to develop our players. We are not going to be winning anything this season. What we want to be doing is we want to be pushing for next season and the season after that. And you have to do that with a quarterback that's able to make decisions, right?
And stay on his feet. But hey, that's a different story. That's out of his control. It's hard to have a quarterback have experience without letting him throw the ball. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't let if you don't let CJ throw the ball and have that experience, he's not going to be ready for those other seasons when it comes time to actually throw the ball.
Yeah.
He threw the ball 44 times. If you count the sacks and you count the scrambles, he dropped back probably, 55 times that game.
Yeah. So 44 times, that's at least 48 attempts because you rushed 4 times.
Yeah, and he got sacked, I think, 5 times. So
add 5 to that. So around mid-50s. You're 100% right.
And that's a lot of throwing.
I would want to know what the average amount of attempts in the pocket for a rookie QB is in week 1.
Yeah.
Because you think about Justin Fields last year, you think about some of the other guys we saw, not a lot of times they go run first and do a lot of kind of what they were doing today with a lot of play action stuff, but with less attempts. I want to know what the last highest amount of attempts on your debut game was? Because 44 for a rookie QB,
it's a lot.
Game, so I think that's a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, Bryce Young, I think, dropped back 30-ish times. But again, I mean, like,
that's putting a lot of trust in a rookie quarterback.
And that's also, I mean, that's a Carolina team that's in a similar state, but they also don't have a good running back.
But in the tricky part is like, yeah, we had a lot of incompletions, but like, man, if you watch that game, he should have had 15 more completions. But penalty.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nonstop. So like I think they were like, you know, I think the thought process was, okay, well, just Woods got us 20 yards and it got called back. Let's try it again.
Yeah.
And then that kept raking up to 44. Like I genuinely think that was the situation. Is like, oh, Tank just got a 20-yard pass. Oh, it got called back. Let's try it again.
Yep.
Like, let's keep getting, like, let's not kill his confidence because of a penalty. Like, let's keep his confidence.
So with the receiving end of things with Tank Dell, so essentially he would be 4-4 for that penalty, right? Or did he have a drop?
No, he would be 4-4.
Yeah, and he would have had almost 60 yards in his debut if it was that. Yeah, so that I think the one bright spot we can be encouraged about is the receiving core looks a lot better this year. You know,
yes.
And my biggest thing that was driving me crazy for the past 2 years really was with Nico Collins just not getting targets. You know, you look at Nico when we drafted him 3 years ago now. It's his third year in the league. He's 6'4", runs a 4.4 40. The dude has the build of an Andre Johnson kind of dude. He's got the vertical leaping ability, and we really stole him from where he was going in the draft because he was a guy that didn't have the best stats his last couple year or two at Michigan because he didn't have a good quarterback. He had Shea Patterson. So when I looked at his athletic profile, I was like, dude, if this dude, as long as he can catch good, he can certainly run good. He's freaking 4.4 and he's 6'4". This is an Andre Johnson type build with his ability to use his body to get separation if he can actually use all 99% of it. And I would just get so mad because, and obviously I get it. We had Brandon Cooks. He was technically our wide receiver 1, but there were so many games where Nico would have maybe 3 targets. And these other guys that are these people we picked up for cheap would get 8, 9 targets and they'd have 2 receptions. Yeah. And I'm just sitting here banging my heads against the wall because I'm like, look, we need to give enough targets to Nico to evaluate him. Yeah. And you look at his yards per catch, and it was good enough, but with the sample size we were getting, it wasn't enough to look at him. So when I look at today, 11 targets, 6 receptions at 80 yards, obviously maybe there's some drops in there, you said penalties involved as well. I'm just encouraged by the fact that Nico Collins got wide receiver 1 level targets like he should so that we can evaluate him. And with his athletic ability, with his yards per catch we've seen, his playmaking ability, he should be getting wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 1A, 1B level targets. Robert Woods also had 10 targets for 6 receptions, 57 yards. What is your overall opinion on this receiving core in its debut?
I mean, it was a good debut for them. You know, I think there's flaws like always, you know. It was encouraging to see Robert Woods do what Robert Woods did today. A lot of fans were not super happy with that signing. I said when we signed him, he's here to play the role that Brandon Cooks is going to play.
Exactly.
He's not as good as Cooks, but he can mentor, he can teach. The roles are similar. Yeah, I like just seeing him, make plays happen, him catch the balls and be reliable.
Yeah, and you think about some of the plays that Robert Woods made as well. He caught several really third and long scenarios. He caught a ball over the middle for first downs. That's what we want to see is, CJ Stroud being able to go to a veteran guy on a crossing route, be able to, be under control and cool and calm when he's doing a cross route over the middle and exposing his body for the first down. We saw that at least 2 times that I saw he caught for first downs in that kind of situation. And, I think that gives confidence to CJ. And, I really want to see the CJ. We know the Robert Woods connection will be there. I think, and I'm just really overly cautious about is that CJ to Nico connection going to continue to be there?
Yeah, I think that connection is going to build. My biggest fear with Nico Collins is he's like Will Fuller he catches with his body. Drives me nuts. That was Will Fuller's biggest flaws, that he didn't know how to use his hands, and it costs him way too many passes.
Well, I don't think he has the catching problem to Will Fuller's level, because that dude, I remember I was doing a workout with my dad. We were watching the combine, and you know that the drill where they have you stand one way, then you turn 45, go over there, catch that ball, then go over here, catch that ball, then you turn around. He dropped 3 of the 4 at the combine without pads on.
You got to remember why Will Fuller was drafted in the first place, though. Speed. He was always going to be your vertical threat. Yeah. He was never there to catch a ball. He was there to open up the field.
He's not a jump ball guy, but Nico's athleticism requires like better hands for the type of player they want him to be. So I think I think the more he plays and goes up against true like good corner talent, the better he's going to be. And then the Tank and Nico connection is already there. I mean, that's been there since the moment they got drafted. It seems like. I mean,
we definitely saw it preseason as well.
You get the ball in Tank's hands and you're guaranteed yards.
So I think he's going to be the Yak King for this team.
So I know I'm kind of going a little off topic here, but there's a name that I kind of want to get everyone's opinion on here, and the name is John Mechie. I know he's inactive, and I know there's some health stuff going on, but what are y'all's opinions on him when he returns back to being healthy?
So I'll tell you, the role that Texans have for him this season is small.
Well, it's supposed to be. It's going to be.
Not because he can't handle it. I think he's going to be a great receiver one day. I mean, he's got all the potential in the world. And we're talking about a guy who was supposed to be a first-round pick towards ACL. They got a really small role for him so that he doesn't extend himself with this recovery.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a dude who's come back from leukemia. I mean,
I mean, and a torn ACL. He's going to play. Yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think him, Tank, and Nico could be a potential, 3 wide receiver core. They're going to draft someone or pick someone up. I mean, that's obvious. But I think Mechie has wide receiver 1 potential along with Tank. I just think fans are going to be disappointed to see the role he has this year. And they're going to be crying for him to be on the field over someone like Robert Woods or Noah Brown. And that's not going to be the case. But everything about, again, the model for the team is the model for for John Mechie is, for him, it's just stepping stone progress. Like, if he's your wide receiver 6 for the year, boom. And then next year, he's your wide receiver 4. Like, whatever.
I mean, I think currently he's rostered behind Xavier Hutchinson as wide receiver 5, right? So I think, is Hutchinson wide receiver 4?
I believe right now it's Woods, Nico. They had Noah Brown listed, but they had Tank in the slot a lot today.
Yeah, I've seen depth charts with Tank as wide receiver 3. I don't really know what to think.
It's interesting. The Texans also don't list a slot receiver on the depth chart. So like, you kind of just guess is wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 the slot. And right now it's Woods, Nico, Brown, Tank, Mechie, Hutch, I believe.
Okay, so then Hutch is wide receiver.
Hutch is wide receiver 7 or 6. Wherever
Okay. Which he did. Hutchinson did have a catch today late in the game, so that was good to see.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking about. I mean, Hutchinson's a guy you could sleep on as well, but he is the guy that was the reception leader for last year, and then Tank Dell's the all yards leader last year in college football. So, there's upside with so many of the wide receiver core guys we have. So, if we're lucky, then Robert Woods is a guy that after 2 years, it's like so long, go try to chase a ring, and then. We got a core that is young and developed. And
so, I mean, Woods knows that his role here is different than any other team. He's not here to be a wide receiver 1, and he knows that. He knows that throughout the year, that role that he has could get significantly less, depending on the development of other people, right? Like, man, if Nico starts doing well and he can be the wide receiver 1, then boom, he'll start into that role. Robert Woods will go down to 2. And then, man, if Tank is balling out, all right, Tank is probably going to step into that wide receiver 2 role. He'll probably still be in the slot, but same kind of vibe. And then, you know what? All right, maybe Mechie, it's time to give him wide receiver 3 shot because Nico's, done it. So Woods knows that his role is different, and he's here a little bit longer, than a year to at least, mentor. But he knows that he may not be an every drive player, And I think at this point in his career, he's just
He's already got a lot of miles on to
Yeah.
begin with, but he's I think he's 30 years old.
But he's a veteran. He's a veteran player to help develop some of these younger guys.
Exactly.
And he looked like his Rams self today. He didn't look like his Tennessee self. He looked like his Rams self, which is good.
Yeah, which really never was a huge vertical threat. It's all about the crossing routes, right? He reminds me of Wes Welker almost. We'll just kill you on 3rd and longs with a late crossing route that no one sees coming and the safety's overlook, and then bam, he looks like no one was even covering him. He just finds those holes in the zones. So when we were looking at the defensive side of the ball from today, what did you see? I mean, obviously we saw Jonathan Grenard and Will Anderson looking pretty decent, but what was your overall optimism, cautiousness? What was your opinion on the defense today?
I've been saying it all season. I mean, we're going to be a top 10 defense this year. I mean, to come in on your first game of the year and to hold a Lamar Jackson-led offense, the guy who scrambles like crazy and can put up 200 yards a game if he wanted to like under 200 yards.
Yeah.
Like,
and mind you, he has receivers this year. Like Zay Flowers looked fantastic. You have Odell. He's got Rashad Bateman. He's got 3 I mean, for the first time maybe in his career, he's actually got one more than Mark Andrews and a random vertical threat to throw to.
And so, I mean, like that was encouraging. Like Grenard sack on the first drive, interception the next drive. Like that was okay. Cool. We're here to play. I mean, I told people like last year we were a top 10 defense besides the run.
Yeah.
And then the fourth quarter ruined us because our offense couldn't stay on the field. That our defense was tired by the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Never failed. But I mean, there's nothing about this defense that doesn't tell me they can be top 10. I mean, even Petrie goes down, and they still only give us 7 points after that.
Yeah.
7 points after Petrie goes down. Like that's also maybe it was 15, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like to not have Ward or Petrie, that's big.
Yeah.
Like to know that Eric Murray was starting a game and we didn't get scored like 50 points on us. Like that alone is good. So there's just a lot of good. There was not really any bad on the defensive side besides like these dumb penalties. Just penalties were across the board. Ugly this week. So, but like Will Anderson, I mean, you talk about a guy who if he didn't get held every play, he probably had 5 sacks.
Yeah.
I mean,
there was a play that his actual sack, he literally got put in a chokehold. Yeah.
He went
down to a knee, got back up, and then
still made the sack.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like he was all over the field. He was getting I think he had like 8 QB pressures, 4 QB hits or something like crazy. Like, and he was held every play. If he wasn't held, those hits probably turned into sacks. I mean, it's those things. Jonathan Grenard looking really good alongside Will Anderson. That's going to be that's a duo that if they can do well this year, you don't have to worry about defensive end. You're good.
And I think one of the things we really struggled with last year was a lot of defensive line pressure when rushing forward. That was the thing that was slamming my head. Like we literally had no one with the exception of Jonathan Grenard
and Jerry Hughes, but I mean he's old, so
yeah. I mean, so that's what I was really hoping for. Was like, I was like, look, I know we need a new quarterback, but I was telling Bert and going to the draft, I was like, I'd be willing to deal with Davis Mills one more year if it meant that I could watch someone get after the quarterback, except for what we have, especially from the edge. We just needed some more help. Grenard could not do it on his own, and I know D'Amico is going to want to have a playmaker at the edge position and someone young that he's going to be a franchise player as well. And luckily, so far, looks like we could have our cake and eat it too. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it was a promising defensive game. I mean, you can't. Again, like I said earlier, your two of the 3 touchdowns came from 4th and 1s that we failed.
Yeah.
I mean, you punt there that they may have not scored. Like that was a really promising game for the Texans defense. You need that to carry over. You need to see the offense do that.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the offense, it seemed like with the amount of field goals we were kicking that were 36 yards or less, it seemed like the offense's main struggle was just converting in the red zone. So what were some of the things that you saw when we got to the red zone that were our main drive killers?
I mean, penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, that flag. We had a penalty. I mean, that forced fumble Stewart had. We had a penalty on that drive. I think 2 or 3 penalties maybe, and then sacked. I mean,
Yep.
Really, everything in the red zone, I mean, everything in the entire game comes down to penalties and poor O-line play.
Yep. Yeah.
And then the most questionable move I think I had was George Fant gets hurt and Dieter comes in. Cool. Had a decent preseason. He's never played right tackle in his life. But Josh Jones was a starting right tackle all last year. Why didn't we shift Jones over to right tackle and let Dieter play left guard? Because it didn't fail. Dieter came in and allowed a sack and it cost a fumble, right? Like the momentum you just gained.
Got to the red zone and everything.
Yep. Just lost it because you put a rookie, not rookie, but basically a rookie in a position he's never played before. Those things are going to cost you games.
Oh, no, 100%.
Play, but putting a guy in a position he's not qualified for when your left guard is a right tackle like that, I don't know. And you probably should have never had Jones playing guard in the first place. You probably should have had Jones in a RT and then someone else in a left guard. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The way the line was structured today was because we simply didn't have it.
No.
Yeah.
So,
now, in regards to the offensive line, do you think that the Band-Aid is simply, at least to preventing 5-sack games, do you think the Band-Aid is simply, Titus Howard coming back in 3 to 4 weeks, or do you think it's going to take more time?
No, I think Titus Howard will solve a lot of your issues. I think the guard is going to be the guard position is going to be rough.
Yeah.
I think the biggest promise today was like Jarrett Patterson looked pretty solid at center. I'm not super inclined to watch who's getting their pass blocks blown. Like I'm watching CJ and what he's doing, but
yeah,
it looks like Jarrett Patterson did pretty solid at center. Granted, a lot of the false starts could have came because the center wasn't great. They're the glue. That's why Tinsel had so many false starts last year. So did Titus, but I think signing Dalton Risner would make a lot of sense. You don't have any clarity at the left guard position. Dalton Risner is a proven veteran who's been a proven good starter. I also would sign Ben Jones. I would sign a center. It's a lot to ask Patterson to come in and own the role. And then, it also puts you in a weird situation when Juice is back in 3 weeks of, does Juice come back and does he get the starting center role? Or does, if Patterson's not doing terrible, then do you, you know what I mean? You're just in, this odd situation of, do you mess up what could be working? I just think they need more veteran presence that are proven starters. So Dalton Risner or Ben Jones would be great. I don't see them making a move. They'll probably sign some nobody that has potential and will be cheap that they can cut in 3 weeks. That's how it'll be. But yeah, I think Titus Howard coming back it'll cure a lot of the problems, but you still need stability for CJ.
Well, I guess the second part of that is, we know what kind of effect Titus Howard will have on the passing game, but do you think he'll be able to help get the push on the run?
Yeah, I mean, Titus Howard's he's a good blocker in general.
Well, I guess I'm more talking about, fixing the Band-Aid collectively as a unit. Do you feel like the one addition there will fix the across the board problems that we have right now?
For the most part. But I think the biggest concern is your center and left guard are undecided.
Yeah.
And centers,
it's the center
most important because they're the foundation, they're the glue. Yeah, they're not the blind side of your cube, but they're the glue that holds the line together. If the center is out of sync, it's going to create false starts.
Well, any discrepancies in an offensive line, the whole offensive line is going to be dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Because they work as a unit.
And what you were talking about with false starts, I mean, we're in an era where the tackles, because of how, and look, as much as I was absolutely screaming at the TV watching the Lions and Chiefs game, watching Jawan line up a whole yard behind the center's waistline and then false start half of the times he would drop back on to pass block. We're seeing, tackles literally get as close as they can to preventing the refs from throwing out a penalty for false start, but they are trying to jump the snap count as much as they can to get depth, right? And in order for that not to be called a false start, you've got to have that kind of sync with your snap count. That's why you see, what Juwan Howard doing what he's doing. He is trying to line up as far back from the center as he can, and then he's trying to get as much of a jump as he can. We're seeing that across the league with tackles. I get so annoyed watching it, but it's because those tackles with how athletic and freaky our defensive ends are getting.
Exactly.
They've got to do it.
It's with those edge rushers like Will Anderson, with Von Miller, with the Bosa's of the world. You have to do it.
You've got guys that are 265 on average and running 4.5, 4.6.
Yeah, and look at the tackles. They're 300 and whatever pounds, 6, 7 foot. You have to have some advantage over that athleticism.
Is it somewhat cheating? Is it pissing me off all the time? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But from JJ Watt's little halftime take on Twitter, that's always like, look, it pisses me off, but if I was them, I'd do the exact same thing.
It's almost like you played defensive end in high school or something.
No, it has nothing to do with it. I'm definitely not a defensively biased person.
Like the center's the glue. So, Patterson's got to show that he can do it. But I don't like that your left guard is so questionable when that's right next to the center. Yeah.
Like
I would love Dalton Risner, because then you'd have Risner and Mason, who are good guards. You'd have Titus and Tunsil.
Yep.
Proven. Top tackle duo. Then you got Juice and Patterson, who can fight out the job. And if they both suck, you sign Ben Jones or something. I would just like that extra security on the O-line for CJ's sake, and just for the whole O-line as a unit. Like you said, they're a unit. And one little dysfunction causes a penalty.
It's not an offensive line.
You know what? Screw it. We need to bring Taylor Lewan out of semi-retirement right now. I know he's only 240 pounds now because he's lost so much weight from gone with that ACL. Bring him back. We'll have a busting with the boys offensive line.
I'm pretty sure the Titans don't want to give him up just yet.
Goodness. Yeah, I wonder. This is completely unrelated. I wonder if he's ever going to play again. I don't know if he's decided or not.
Who knows?
You look at a dude who's lost like 40 pounds since he last played. It's really weird.
Hey, I guarantee you can find that 40 pounds somehow.
The report today, the media was like, yeah, Taylor Lewan's retiring. He was like, no, I'm not.
Oh, my Lord.
I
don't know what's made that.
He had given them permission to use some video he made, and then they twisted his words, and he was like, if you want, he's like, congrats for using me for clickbait, but this ain't true. I'm not retiring. I was like, you ain't gonna retire 10 minutes before your game.
Fact check wrong.
Yeah. So. Wild times we're living in. So what do you see as any outlooks that we could predict for week 2?
A win.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I think you just got to factor in the O-line. That's really your biggest factor. That's going to be your consistency for CJ. Mm-hmm. If the O-line can be good, especially the interior O-line, because you got DeForest Buckner, who's a pain in the butt. One of the best DTs in the league. Mm-hmm. That's going to be really telling. And then your defense, you're basically facing another Lamar Jackson. So what we did today is going to work. You're down Jonathan Taylor, so that's a big key factor. So this should be a much easier game on the defense. It's just a matter of what can the offense do. That was the story of last year. What can the offense do? That's going to be the story all this year. So I would say the biggest key factor is going to be the O-line and the offense.
Yeah, and do you think that they'll be able to match the Indianapolis offense? Anthony Richardson already, I think, had 2 total touchdowns today. Interception, got hurt with a bruised knee late. It looked pretty entertaining. Heck, I had him in fantasy. I'm kind of biased. He got me 20 points. That's all I need.
Here's the situation: CJ faced Baltimore Ravens, and still put up more yards than all of them combined.
Yep,
both of them.
Anthony Richardson was Jacksonville.
Jacksonville's defense is always hit or miss, especially week 1. Jacksonville's never been good 2 years in a row, so I have no expectation for Jacksonville this year.
And now they've lost Miles Jack too. Mm-hmm. Although I think he was with a different team last year, but still, Miles Jack used to be the anchor of that defense.
So Anthony, he had a good game.
Yeah,
still less yards than CJ, threw an interception.
Yep,
CJ didn't do that. Bryce Young played against who the Panthers play against?
Bro, I don't even know.
Not a good team.
Fact check that.
I got you.
They played against the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, dear.
And he threw 2 interceptions. and completed like 20 or like 30% of his passes.
And we're talking about a team that like would give 30 points up on average last year.
Bryce was 20 for 38 with 140 yards, 2 interceptions and a touchdown.
Wow.
Yeah. Guess what? The Texans offense didn't look flashy today, but they also played a much better defense than both of those rookie QBs. And CJ still did better.
He definitely had way more poise than I would have expected from a rookie QB who got sacked 5 times. Like even when Deshaun Watson was a rookie, right? And we knew he had all the promise in the world to turn it into a pro level quarterback. When he was getting lit up, I don't even think he had the same level of poise as what we're seeing out of CJ Stroud when he was tasting the dirt as much as he was today.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I was hearing across the board on preseason is that, dude, this guy's got so much poise. Like no matter what happens, he's able to focus, get to the next play.
Yep. And that's what he did. He turned the page, so like, I mean, the Colts looked good today, whatever. They were facing Jacksonville. Nothing special about that Jacksonville defense, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony Richardson, cool, he got a touchdown. He still threw an interception. Still didn't have as many yards as CJ.
Yeah, he threw one and he ran for one, so that's kind of cool to see that, especially since I started him in fantasy. that was an absolute like complete prayer for me. I drafted him like I think round 10. I'm always a guy that takes 3 running backs, runs a 3 running back offense, runs the third one as my flex. So I'll go like running back, receiver, running back 4th, and then I'll get my QB in like round 10. And just I'm always like. Anywho, we need to do a fantasy football episode later, but we wanted to do a fantasy football episode before we drafted, but we did a league for the pod this year. So, like, if we would have said anything, everyone's going to start stealing each other's picks.
Yeah, always how it goes.
It's the cost of media these days, right? But the draft was good. We had some hilarious moments too on the Zoom calls, but yeah, that was the one side of that. But with Anthony Richardson, I was like, well, he's a guy that could be explosive every now and then and go crazy possibly, or he could be really bad. I know I can get Tannehill like in round 17 because nobody wants him and get a veteran. And I can also probably get Derek Carr. Once again, nobody wants him, but he's a veteran. I just need 17 to 16 points from my quarterback every week. And with the running back stable I got, I'm good. So, so far I needed 17 to 16, maybe 18 from Anthony Richardson. I got 20. I'm good with that. Mm-hmm. We'll see how he keeps doing.
Yeah,
but I'm because I'm a Texas fan, I'm not starting week 2.
No,
I'm starting Carr.
All cards in, right?
He's not next week. He's gonna get stacked a couple times. That Colts O-line, besides like Quentin Nelson and what's their right tackle's name or one of their guard. I mean, they're nothing. It's nothing fancy.
And Jonathan Taylor's still out for them too.
He is.
Yeah, holding out for that contract, and I think he's got a minor injury of sorts as well. So
no, that injury's made up, but.
There it is. I think you're saying it was like a groin or something like that. I don't forget what it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that injury is made up. I mean, but like Deion Jackson had 13 carries for 28 yards. I mean,
that's worse than our deal today. And it was pretty bad for us.
Anthony Richardson, like you did Lamar, winnable.
Definitely winnable. Especially since with the Jacksonville defense and all the shenanigans they had, they only put up 21 points. Now, granted, he did get a kind of a bruised knee towards the end of the game. Eventually, had to finish it off, but still.
Yeah, and he may not be 100% come Sunday, but I mean they're going to play him. So
yeah, what I've already heard is that he hasn't been ruled out at all, and he should be.
No.
The question is whether or not he practices this week.
Which again, if he practice again, he's probably going to suck.
Yeah, sounds like and they've got a thinner receiver core than we do. I mean, they have Michael Pittman and who? Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Downs,
so I like the matchup.
It'll be a good game. It'll be an important game for us to see if they can bounce back from a really kind of devastating loss and see how they handle the offensive line stuff. But I think another key factor is like you're at home with a sold out crowd for the first time in 3 years.
Yeah,
and Texans haven't had that kind of cheering for them in 3 years. So I think that'll be really encouraging just to see like fans there and excited.
Here's a question: who do you have to give the credit for that?
I think it's a mix. I think you have four factors. Nick Caserio for building the team the way he has. Some people will hate him, built it well. Homecoming of DeMeco Ryans, and the culture shift he's bringing.
I've never wanted a head coach to be
But again-
more successful ever. Like
Yeah.
D'Amico was my hero growing up. I watched this film all the freaking time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then this is going to be a bold take. Not many people agree with me. Cal McNair.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
Cal McNair having the balls to, hire a first-time head coach.
If you followed like the page, like last game, I saw a face on Cal McNair that I've never seen before. And I saw him turn the page and said, no, I'm done with this bull crap.
Yeah.
And
time to win.
He fought Nick Caserio. He didn't get Jonathan Gannon. He got D'Amico Ryans, who he wanted. He got a quarterback. Like Cal has been like interested into the fan base, right? Like he's getting us new uniform.
New unis, yeah.
Oh,
I'm excited.
Those are gonna be clean. I've seen some sneak peeks and they're dope.
All righty.
You might have to send some of those over.
I don't know if
baby.
He's like, it's confidential. It's confidential.
I do have the color scheme, so shoot me a text after this.
All right, bet.
So I think, Cal McNair is a big part of it. I mean, he's turned the page. He's shown that he cared. I think firing Jack Easterby was like all right, I care now, and then,
that was a prayer answered.
that should have happened the moment Hopkins was traded, but whatever.
Exactly.
And then C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson are and Tank Dell, I guess. You can just say that they're a trio package deal. Everyone.
Exactly.
I
New
posted
blood.
a picture of Tank Dell in his new uniform, and it's gotten 21,000 likes because Paul Wall somehow found it, and then Des Bryant liked it. I'm not even kidding. Like Paul Wall shared it to his Instagram, Tank shared it to his Instagram story. Like Des Bryant liked it. Some like Olympus gold medalist liked it. I mean, like Tank Dell is just like a content maniac for me at this point. So I'm just gonna keep posting about him and just grow my following, I guess. But
bro, I love Paul Wall. Like just out of nowhere, something Houston sports related happens. He's just in there with like wearing a huge daggum grill. And just he's there. Yeah. He's not doing it. He's just there.
Yeah. So he posted, and I was like, "Whoa, this is wild." And I just kept seeing the number. I was like, "Wow!" So I think it's up to 22 now at this point. But so like those three together are a package deal. People want to see them play. So I think those four factors all contribute to it. I don't think there's one man that can get the sole responsibility. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it goes to D'Amico, and a lot of it goes to the players we acquired, but. You got to give credit to Cal and Nick where credit's due.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I got one more last question for you before we wrap up, and this is kind of more looking at the big picture, both looking back in hindsight and looking forward. We talked about Caserio, and when I've had conversations with Bert about Caserio, I was like, look, my overall opinion on him is I've absolutely loved how he's drafted. I feel like not all the drafts, just like any draft, not all the draft picks have actually gone, converted into a full-time, player or even fully on the 53-man roster, but he's had a lot of hits. The most important picks, I think we've had a lot of hits on those as well. Obviously, Kenyon Green, to be determined. I think it's the one, early round pick that's a big, TBD for us. But the main complaints I think a lot of people have been talking about with Caserio is just, it seems like sometimes he's trying to decide whether he wants to really be a GM or if he wants to be a coach. You're talking about a guy that with our first two head coaches was on the team radio and was giving input to the head coach on what he wanted to see happen, doing play, acting like he was a semi-play caller, working, side drills with players in practice, stuff like that. And, especially when you have two head coaches that previously were told, hey, look, this is your team. We got you a multi-year deal. We believe in you, stuff like that. What I was worried that kind of behavior was going to carry on into the D'Amico era, and I haven't heard anything of it since. But when you were looking at those situations with our previous two head coaches, especially with Lovey, we were worried about that carrying over with him. When you were hearing these reports about him kind of have one hand in the coaching aspect, one hand in the GM aspect, what were your thoughts when you were processing that when we were in hindsight in those previous two head coaching regimes? And then are we worried about Caserio's hand in the coaching, play calling, team radio area on this? Do you think he's going to continue to just remain a GM, or do you think he's going to have a hand in both puddles? I mean, what are your thoughts?
So I know David Coley, so I know why kind of he had a big hand in with Coley. Coley was here just to navigate the Watson situation, but Lovey was a panic hire. Too. So
yeah.
I don't think he will have a super big hands-on role in like the coaching aspect.
Mm.
He was pretty invested at training camp, and he's running up and down the field, like getting angles and just watching different players do different things. But he's given D'Amico the reins, right? He's not given roster control to D'Amico, right? That's a collaborative effort. Which is
as it should be. We don't need an Emperor Belichick. We don't.
We don't need another Bill Belichick either. Yeah. So
no.
I think the way he's doing it and has handled it this offseason is good. Kind of having like a, hey, here's what I think. What do you think? How do we collaboratively do this from a GM point and from a head coach point, right? Like people question like, how is Eric Murray on the roster? Like those things come from Nick Caserio because contracts and you got to manage money. So I don't think he'll have a big role in the coaching sort of dynamic. Like he let D'Amico choose his staff. So that's so that he was kind of pushing himself out of that role. And then, he hasn't really been super, like he's not on the side. I didn't see him on the sidelines today. I haven't seen him on the sideline during preseason. So I think his reserve was back. I think a lot of that was he was trying to command a tank.
Yeah. I lied. I got one more question before we end up here.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I got one more question for you.
You're good.
Obviously, with a defensive-minded head coach, who's a guy who has said, I don't want to just be defensive-minded. I've done my time with the offense. And the other thing I was encouraged about D'Amico is the fact that he was a guy pitched as a head coaching candidate for the last 2 years and purposely stayed as a DC under Shanahan in the 49ers system because he wanted to prepare. He's like, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
Look, he's looking at a big bag in front of him. Many teams wanted him. Colts interviewed him at one point.
Yeah.
Like, man, he was like, not ready yet. I don't want to mess up the opportunity. And a lot of that time was spent looking at the offensive side of the ball. So I think he's a little more balanced than we think, but still defensive-minded head coach. The offensive coordinator position was a big hire. And once again, we got a guy that's coming from I believe, he was
San Fran. I thought.
Yep, I believe the wide receivers coach for the Shanahan regime. Is that correct?
Game coordinator.
That's what it was. So you bring in a coordinator, assistant, whatever you want to call it, from the Shanahan era, Shanahan regime. I know we have a very limited sample, but based on what you see was just the play calling. I know we question a lot of the play action so far today from week one, but from preseason and week one, what are your thoughts on the current offensive coordinator, his decision making we've seen so far, and what is your outlook for the rest of the season? What are some key things we need to be looking for in regards to that position?
Yeah, Slowick, I think is got a lot of potential to be a good OC. And anything I say, Dot, I don't want to take the wrong of like he may not. I don't think he's good. I think he has a lot of potential. You got to run the ball more.
Yep.
You cannot like let a guy like Dameon Pierce only see 11 carries.
That was abysmal.
And then like Devin Singletary is a really good like passing back that you could use a little bit more. Yeah, you got to see less of the play action. That was abysmal too. And you have to be better about getting someone like Tank involved more than Noah Brown.
Especially in regards to being a vertical threat, right? Like I just didn't see enough shots downfield with Tank.
Yeah,
Tank Bell
well, I think they were again. Trying to play a little. I think they're trying to play small ball in the regards of like let's keep the play clock down. Let's not let's keep our defense off the field.
Well, and with the fact that you got your offensive line, you could drive a truck through that offensive line. We want to keep Stroud on our feet. Let's keep our release time from snap to release to like 2.3 seconds. That'd be great.
But it's a culmination of things. But I mean, I like the direction. I just need to see better play calling and like Dalton Schultz not being used.
Yeah, now especially with the amount of play action they're running, right? Because when you think about, especially in the red zone, right? When you get to the red zone, now granted, this is getting to the red zone with a lot of typically what you see with a lot of high rushing. They get to the red zone. A lot of someone breaks open a big run, or we get a bunch of 7, 8, 5 yard carries back to back. We get into the red zone. I mean, go-to is a play action of the tight end doing an out route or a crossing route over the middle, right?
Yeah,
you force them to put 8 in the box. Now, obviously, that wasn't our situation. But if you're running this much play action and you're not utilizing Dalton Schultz, I mean, that's what he got. He made such a living with the Cowboys off of that.
Yep.
I was gonna say we're talking about someone who like loves Dak. I mean, that was Dak's guy. I mean, Dak would throw a yard to him and he'd get 10 yards. Like, you got to get Schultz more involved. And we're talking about a guy who's worked with Kittle before. Like,
exactly.
He knows how important and good tight ends
are. Yep.
So I got to see more of that. And this is more into Miko, but I got to see better timeout management, because that first half was really embarrassing with our timeouts. I didn't even catch them being used. And then I was like, we don't have any more timeouts yet. And then you got a minute left on the clock. You have no timeouts, right? So I think that's a culmination of, D'Amico and Slowick kind of all, hey, maybe we should take a breather here. But those are the things like I got to see Tank, I got to see Schultz, and I got to see Dameon Pierce. Those are three big. And I need to see Mechie and Hutch when they're. I don't need to see Noah Brown on the field. I don't need to see Noah Brown on the field at all.
Fair.
When I have Tank, Mechie, and Hutch on the bench.
Yep.
So that's where I see the offense right now. They're in a good place. And I think the more CJ gets comfortable, the better Schultz can be used, because Schultz will kind of read, okay, here's what does CJ need, and Schultz will kind of
adjust.
Do what you do with Dak and just be that guy who gets open. But I think they need to design more of that for Schultz. And then I'd love to see more CJ design runs.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Fair enough.
He's more mobile than people think he is, and I think you can throw a lot of people off by like just having him scramble for 5 yards.
Yeah. Well, and as we were talking about earlier, I think if the rushing game is able to be opened up at all, because today it just was not. I think all that opens up by force,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, if you're able to at least get an average yards per carry of 2.5 or something like that, that at least makes
the defense honest. At least,
yeah. Because today they didn't have they could do whatever they wanted.
Yeah. When you're passing the ball 40 times a game, I mean, it's not hard
to be a threat in play action. You've got to have something to sell it, right?
Yeah.
If your average yards per carry is 1.9 or something like that, nobody's going to buy the fake.
Yeah.
So because basically, if you're doing play action, no one's buying it. You're just taking away time that your quarterback can be reading.
Has to throw.
And the run game wears the defense out, and it opens up your passing game. And we were just coming out passing.
Yep.
Run the ball a little bit. Get 2 or 3 first downs with Pierce, Singletary, Mike Boone, and then open up your spread and say, okay, now I can do a little slant. I can do this. I can do this. Like, you throw them off, you wear them down, you'll get there. So it's minor things, and if they tweak them, it can be good. Again, week ones are always hard, and then you're playing against a really good defense. So what do you do?
Well, what do we do as Texans fans? We suffer.
We pray. That's what we do.
It's you never know what you're going to get, and if we lose, it's going to be in some of the most frustrating ways possible. If we win, it's going to be the most nail-biting way possible. Either way, you're going to be about 5 pounds lighter by the time you're done watching the game, and here we are. But yeah, Dylan, thank you so much for coming on the show, dude. This has been a fantastic interview, man. We want to have you back on again as soon as possible. For those people who aren't aware of your platform, how can they reach out and get in touch with your Insider Network?
Yeah, Texans County on Instagram. I should be one of the only ones that pop up. We're on Twitter too. I don't use Twitter much besides inside.
I believe it's X now, just to be.
Yeah, X. My bad.
But but when you make a post, is it still a tweet?
I think
it's
a Z.
Is it an X?
I think that's what it's called now.
Is it a Z? A Z?
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Who knows?
I don't care enough about Twitter to dive in. I just get information from it.
For me, Twitter's my algorithm to get all the sports inside news, and then Instagram's where I go and actually put the content out. That's usually pretty much how it is for me. Texans County, and then also have Astros County for the Astros fans out there. It's Astros_County. We got to get this man on for October.
Yeah, more baseball.
I'm not running the page currently because it was just exhausting to post for the amount of games the Astros play. But
I understand.
I am probably the biggest Astros fan on the planet. It's my number one sport over football. So Yeah, you can hit me up on there too, and I'll talk about Astros stuff.
Yeah,
so.
definitely got to get him in for October.
Yeah, absolutely.
October's gonna be fun. Best month.
Well, once again, as all Houston sports, it's gonna be stressful, but hopefully it'll be fun. It'll give us something to do. But
it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Well, Dylan, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to have you on again sometime soon. And yeah, man, God bless. We'll talk to you soon.